I'm hoping this could reach somebody to help me and my mom secure stable housing.
The last time we talked about Tophiachu, she was still homeless and knee-deep in online chaos. After the carjacking and her brother's death, you'd think this would be the moment she finally stepped up, got a job, supported her mother, and tried to stabilize their lives, especially since her mom is stuck in a shelter barely fit for survival. But instead, Tophia has been putting every excuse under the sun as to why she couldn't get a job.
The common sense for, like, when rich people are born of money, they're rich. When people are born of poverty, they stay poor. That's how the system is built. Like, the system is built poorly. Get a part-time job? No, I cannot get a part-time job. How many times? I shouldn't have to work. If I break down at work because I'm too, I can't. You don't understand. Like, stop trying to force someone who is not mentally in the right mind space to go to a work when they have I'm freaking anxious. I don't have anxiety, but I am anxious because you guys just want me to go to work so you can get me fired. We're not talking about negativity. Please bring up positive stuff or I'll make you pay to talk. And some of you guys don't have the money to pay to talk, so.
Claiming that getting a job would somehow delay her chances of getting housing, to blaming the system for why she cannot get hired at all. The list of excuses Tophia has stacked up whenever someone tells her to work is practically endless. But perhaps the most interesting excuse of all is her claim that being homeless is the very reason she cannot get employed. And to be fair, that is true to a certain extent. Not having a stable address does make things harder, and many employers are understandably hesitant to trust someone who constantly frames themselves as a victim of homelessness the way that Tophia does. However, that is not actually the reason Tophia herself says she cannot work. According to her, the real obstacle is that she does not have $10 for an ID.
Especially because a lot of them don't have IDs. They've had their documentation stolen and can't afford an ID. Like, it's only $10, but some people still can't only afford $10.
Which is absurd when you consider that she has been caught multiple times over the past 2 to 3 months, wasting what little money she has on things like shopping, getting her nails done, and even more bizarrely, gambling at the casino. Now, someone could try to excuse the shopping trips by saying maybe she needed food or basic necessities. Even getting her nails done could be brushed off with she is a girl, maybe she just wanted to feel better about herself, even if that still doesn't make much sense given her situation. But what justification is there for someone living in a homeless shelter, actively begging for money to survive, turning around and gambling at a casino? None. There is absolutely no excuse for that. What makes this even more unsettling is the timing. The very day before she was spotted gambling at the casino, Tophia claimed she had been evicted from the homeless shelter she was staying at, meaning she was supposedly back on the streets. Immediately after that, she began posting urgent messages on TikTok asking for donations, working overtime to squeeze as much sympathy as possible from her followers. I have an emergency. Can anyone help me out and send me money to my PayPal? I'd appreciate it. I know what the trolls are gonna say, but I need safe shelter for the night. For those asking if I am okay, no, I am not okay. I keep being put in danger. I will have to sleep outside in a tent. I don't get help. I can't explain the whole situation because it's personal. But another interesting area where Tophia appears to have wasted a large sum of money is a recent situation where she claims she was scammed. In a live stream she did recently, Tophia told her viewers that she paid $400 to a website for some kind of service she never ended up receiving. While it is still unclear what that service was supposed to be, she claims the site took her money, did not deliver what was promised, and never refunded her afterward.
I was like, They said that they favored in the company's favor for that refund. They were like, yeah, so we sided with them. And I was like, what the heck? So I had to call them. They reopened it and I said, look, I got an email that shows they said it didn't process. And then after I got done talking with them, they processed the money. No way. You ain't gonna take my $400. I don't even use your website anymore. Like, it's not worth it. For $400 a month, and then, yeah, so no.
Besides the TikTok live donations she has been receiving, another major financial stream that appears to have made Tophia even more careless with money is the GoFundMe she created, which itself went on to spark massive backlash. On March 11th, 2025, Tophia, alongside her brother and mother, was the victim of a carjacking. That incident tragically resulted in the death of her brother and left her mother injured.
In the vehicle in that church parking lot, or what exactly was going on, but it was about 3:30 in the morning. There were 3 adults in the vehicle. Apparently someone approached them and maybe tried to carjack the car. One of the victims reported that the driver, who was her brother, was shot. And then the suspect tried to grab her and pull her out of the passenger seat. She was able to get away and flee from the victim. There was another female victim, who I believe is the mother of those 2, was also shot.
Given how horrific this situation was, nearly everyone, including people who had previously disliked her, felt deep sympathy for Tophia and the entire Chu family. That sympathy quickly turned into financial support when a GoFundMe was created to cover Brother Chu's burial costs and to help support the family during their homelessness. However, that wave of empathy did not last long. The GoFundMe was eventually reported and shut down, and the primary reason for that fallout was none other than Tophia herself. Despite the fact that she had just suffered a devastating tragedy with the loss of her brother, along with the ongoing financial crisis of being homeless, you would expect Tophia to be extremely careful with how she spent the money coming in from both the GoFundMe and her livestream gifts. But instead of showing restraint, Tophia appeared completely uninterested in responsible spending. She continued shopping and even returned to gambling at the casino. The same day she was seen shopping at Raw's, she went live on TikTok where viewers immediately confronted her about it. Rather than taking accountability, Tophia outright lied and claimed she was only looking around and had not purchased anything.
Considering that a lot of people are breaking the law and committing crimes by stalking me because, oh, God forbid I go shopping at Ross and ping, there's a video, which I didn't go shopping at Ross, I was just looking around.
However, she would later end up exposing herself when she slipped up and admitted that she actually had bought things after all.
Or if I bought anything when oh yeah, I did. I got makeup stuff because my lipstick came off. That's what it was.
Another topic that came up during the same live stream was Tophia claiming that she was a victim of what she described as racism, simply because people were saying she is not black.
Because his advocacy stops when it comes to black people. And why are black people shitted on so much? Especially when I don't care, because people could say I'm not black, but I'm black. Whether you say I'm not black or not, that's your opinion and that's anti-black. Whether you want to unlearn the stuff that you learned from your parents must have been anti-black and racist, because that's the only thing I could think of, because nobody just outright all of a sudden is anti-black or racist.
Now, whether someone saying that is truly enough to be labeled as racism is already questionable, but what makes this even more bizarre is what Tophia would later reveal just a couple of months afterward. She dropped the bombshell that Papachu is not actually her biological father, but rather her stepfather. That would mean she is not black through him at all, since her mother is Hispanic, directly contradicting the identity she had previously been claiming through her father or stepfather.
I didn't steal from my stepdad. He told us we could use his disability.
And somehow, the most baffling part of this entire situation is not even the hypocrisy itself. It is how casually Tophia now refers to Papachu as her stepfather, as if that revelation carries no weight at all. There was no explanation, no addressing the months of claims that built her identity narrative around him. She simply said it and moved on. What makes this even more ironic is that while Tophia loudly complains about people on the internet being racist toward her, her own mother was caught calling her the hard R multiple times on a live stream. And despite her entire audience hearing it in real time, Tophia never addressed it once.
Call me a beaner like so. Excuse me. Not slow, because we're talking about 2 people, you retard.
What the fuck do you want?
Mom, don't
be calling my fucking phone, retarded bitch.
Mom, don't use that word. Stop.
Tophia is a foul, obese.
Mom, I don't want to hear that. Please stop.
Now, circling back to the GoFundMe, once it became undeniably clear that Tophia had been spending the donated money irresponsibly on unnecessary purchases, people began demanding refunds. Instead of admitting the money had already been blown, Tophia cooked yet another ridiculous story. She claimed that she was not actually the owner of the GoFundMe at all, and that the person who controlled it had vanished with the funds.
I don't want anyone to get scammed. Me and my family will be working on a GoFundMe if we need any other expenses. As for right now, please. Also, I do want to say, those of you who have sent money to Cash App, it is saying failed. So if you sent any money, please send money to my PayPal if it doesn't work.
Naturally, nobody believed this. Not only was the story absurd on its face, but it also came from someone who already had a firmly established reputation as a pathological liar. And if that was not bad enough, Tophia would go on to launch another GoFundMe on October 5th of this year. This time, the situation escalated to a level that was no longer just questionable, but outright vile. The goal was set at $500,000. At this point, she could no longer even use her brother's funeral as justification, because no funeral costs anywhere near that amount. But it got even worse. It was later exposed that the state had already paid roughly $7,000 to Tophia's family, both to cover her brother's funeral expenses and as compensation for the tragedy itself. Conveniently, Tophia never disclosed this to her audience, and whenever people confronted her about it, Tophia was mostly frustrated at the people who asked her and barely gave any kind of response that made sense.
Let's clear up what the state paid, because I'm so sick and tired of people saying the state already paid. No, the state did not already pay. So I'm going to explain that to you because it's literally pissing me off. So let's get this out of the way. Cremated people can be buried. My grandmother and grandfather are buried and they're cremated. So for people saying that you can't bury cremated people, yes, you can. You can also have them entombed.
At this point, her reputation as a scammer was already cemented. People were no longer willing to donate. As a result, her new GoFundMe raised a completely insignificant amount compared to its $500,000 goal, effectively killing her last realistic hope of surviving on donations. Anyone with basic logic would immediately understand that a $500,000 GoFundMe was never plausible in the first place. But Tophia genuinely believed she would receive the full amount. She was more than confident in it, and when reality hit and the donations barely moved, she completely crashed out. From repeatedly exploiting the carjacking tragedy and emotional rants to breaking down over the smallest inconveniences imaginable, Tophia began unraveling publicly in every possible way. And then came the most infamous moment of all, the Tylenol incident. On a random day, Tophia went live on TikTok visibly choking and retching, claiming that she had just taken 7 Tylenol in an attempt to end her life.
Stuff, that's all. I can't put this in there. Put it in there. Put it in. Help me.
While the subject of this situation is extremely sensitive and anyone in such a state absolutely deserves sympathy, there are undeniable red flags surrounding Tophia's alleged self-harm attempt that make the entire incident appear suspicious. First of all, it raises serious questions why anyone in their right mind, especially after claiming they had come to their senses, would choose to pick up their phone and film themselves choking on camera instead of immediately calling for help or going to the hospital. And even if medical attention were delayed, one would still expect Tophia to visibly follow through with hospital treatment after abruptly ending the live stream.
I took 7 Tylenol. And I don't feel good. I need help. I wanted to kill myself.
However, the situation became even more questionable when a photo of Tophia shopping with a fan surfaced online, allegedly from the exact same day as the supposed hospital visit. This immediately sparked massive backlash online, as it directly contradicted the narrative she had presented. Instead of addressing the core accusation that she may have faked the incident, Tophia chose to focus almost entirely on the way the fan posed in the photo. She stated, "I want to say this because it's really important. I just had an interaction with a fan, and they literally asked me for a photo. I said sure they could have a photo, but if you guys take photos, please be respectful and do not do inappropriate poses because it is literally uncomfortable. Everything just happened so fast that she literally was popping her butt out or whatever pose she did. I don't want anyone to take anything the wrong way." That's it. Another major inconsistency lies in her hospital claim itself. Someone who has genuinely attempted self-harm would not realistically be discharged within the same day after only spending a single night, as such cases typically involve at least a 72-hour psychiatric hold. This created yet another hole in Tophia's story, which only became more contradictory when she attempted to explain it. At first, she claimed the hospital released her because she was calm and not displaying any signs of distress, which led them to determine she was fine.
They were like, oh, well, we'll just let you sleep. But I was like, no, I better get out. So they discharged me. She was gonna let me sleep, but I was like, no, I need to go. I didn't go in for mental health reasons, though. I went to the wrong window, and then I told them that it was not good. I explained it, and I was calm. If I didn't go in calm, that would have been a whole different story. If I would have went in freaking out, if I would have went in like this one lady was hollering all night and said she wasn't going to stop until they gave her belongings, because you cannot have your phone. They take your phone.
This explanation is deeply illogical, as it implies that people at risk of self-harm can simply be assessed by looking at their faces, which is an utter lie. To make matters worse, Tophia later contradicted this explanation entirely by presenting a second version of events. She now claimed the hospital actually wanted to keep her longer, but she chose to leave because she was afraid of losing her shelter bed, stating that the shelter would give her spot to someone else if she stayed overnight again. Given Tophia's long-established pattern of seeking pity and sympathy from her audience by any means necessary, many viewers believe the Tylenol incident was simply another attention-driven episode. Others also speculated that this was an attempt to revive donations for her GoFundMe, which ultimately failed. However, despite everything, a close relative of Tophia reportedly stepped in and offered both her and Papachu a place to stay, which was especially significant given Papachu's worsening condition inside the shelter. Seeing the horrific conditions that both Tophia and her mother Marie were living in, Papachu's brother, who is also Tophia's uncle, stepped forward and offered them a place to stay. This offer had the potential to finally resolve the long-standing housing crisis that Tophia and her family had been trapped in for a very long time. However, the offer came with one condition. Tophia would have to stay off social media. Given Tophia's obsessive attachment to online attention, it was obvious from the start that she would never accept this condition. But what followed was even more disturbing. Instead of politely declining or expressing gratitude for the opportunity, Tophia immediately launched into a public smear campaign against her own uncle. She began airing private family matters online, dragging old personal issues into the public eye, things that had no business being discussed on social media whatsoever.
You left me and my family homeless when I was in elementary school, trying to tell me that, I was not old enough. How many times have you thrown me out of grandma's house? More than once. And tried to make excuses about my father? That's BS. You know you took money from her bank account, and his son was driving by there and pulled up and literally told me, because he was talking to me, because, he was like, they were on his way somewhere, and told me that his own dad had a restraining order on him, that he was not allowed to go by his grandmother's house because his father put a restraining order on him. I'm like, and I literally told my grandma, I said, does he have a restraining order? Because he said his dad has a restraining order. He can't come around here. That's why he hasn't been around. She didn't even know. Because she would say, like, the other grandchildren don't come to visit. Me and my brother were the only ones that came to visit, and we didn't have a car.
And her uncle is far from the only person Tophia has recently had serious conflict with. Around June of this year, Tophia was catfished by someone posing as an Asian teenager. Anyone familiar with her content already knows about her fixation, often expressed in an unsettling way, on Asian men, particularly the BTS archetype. Seeing this, someone on Instagram decided to troll her through catfishing, initially treating it as a joke, but Tophia was so gullible that she never bothered to verify who she was actually speaking to. Instead, she immediately believed the persona and began confiding in the stranger, revealing personal information and even detailing what she described as her master plan to retaliate against her detractors. It is no secret that Tophia harbors deep resentment toward T and commentary channels, despite the fact that they are largely responsible for the level of notoriety she has today. One of the people she particularly despises is a TikToker known as Jay Grizzly. In her messages to the catfish, Tophia made multiple disturbing statements describing how she planned to destroy this person. She said, "I would go undercover and rob these people of money and get money off of them." At that point, it was no longer just talk, because this was her openly describing a plan to commit an actual crime. Given the horrible financial situation she is in, it is likely she needed money to get her nails done, or maybe she needed some gambling money, so in her mind, robbing someone probably felt justified. Still, it is hard to believe she would be capable of escaping if she were about to get caught, given her obesity. But unfortunately, Tophia was not done with her revenge plot, because in the same conversation, she went even further and said this wild statement: "You can also go after their parents' reputation, and I am pretty sure if you hit their parents in their pockets and their reputation, they don't want this type of negative energy around them, they will cut these people off." At that point, it was no longer just about stealing money, it was about actively trying to destroy families. And Jay Grizzly is not the only person Tophia is plotting revenge against. Recently, she's been increasingly getting frustrated with another content creator by the name Smokey, who is a famous reaction channel creator in the Tophiachu universe. This time, though, it was not just anger or insults. She was openly wishing the absolute worst to happen to him.
I wonder if Smokey will kick the bucket. That's what I wonder. I wonder if Smokey will kick buckets. Do you think so? I said it. And what? What are you gonna do about it? Nothing. I'm so sick and tired of Smokey reporting on things because they got bills they gotta pay, they got a house, so they lie on people. Smokey MC needs to kick a bucket, okay? I'm not gonna be nice to people who literally shits on someone who lost their brother. I'm sorry, I cannot do it.
The people watching the live stream were clearly disturbed by her behavior and started reporting it. Instead of reflecting on what she had just said, this only made her more frustrated, and she immediately turned herself into the victim, accusing people of being soft-skinned for reporting her, even though she had just wished death on another human being. And this was not the only time during the past few months that Tophia's chat pushed back against her behavior. In a live stream she held around July 19th, Tophia was sitting at Sonic, one of the most famous drive-in fast food restaurants in the US, when an employee approached her and told her that she was banned from the restaurant. At that point, even real life was starting to mirror the consequences of her online behavior.
I used the curl enhancing smoothie, and then I used this mousse cream thing. I don't know what it was. I got it at TJ Maxx.
My friend, you gotta go.
Oh, that's because people called and harassed. They're calling and harassing.
One of the most common themes in Tophia's recent content is her constant complaints about men bothering her on the street. She claims that she is being pursued by a lot of men whom she calls creepy, but the reason she believes these men are obsessed with her is extremely absurd. In Tophia's mind, any man who offers her a ride or even leaves a comment on Facebook is instantly labeled as someone who is obsessed with her.
The amount of creepy men on Facebook is so insane. I woke up and some guy was like, "Hey, you're beautiful." I was like, okay. The old men too, like that are liking my stuff. This one guy, I don't know who he is, if that's him or if that's a meme page, but yeah, he's creepy. He's like a stalker.
To be fair, this does not mean predatory men do not exist. There absolutely are men who target people they think are easy victims, and that reality cannot be denied. But the irony here is that there is one person she completely avoids addressing, despite constantly talking about creepy men, and that person is her own stepfather. Donald Slidell, better known as Papachu, is a 58-year-old man who genuinely believes he is teething like a baby, and that his fallen-out teeth will grow back again like a child's.
I know my teeth. My teeth are going to grow back. I'm 58. I'm 58 years old, and I am teething. Right now, I am teething like a baby.
If you are familiar with Papachu, these kinds of absurdly delusional claims are simply part of his character, and are most likely the result of his years-long untreated mental health problems, more specifically bipolar disorder. One of the other most notorious delusions Papachu is known for is his infamous claim that he owns an international bank called the Ozark International Bank of America, where he presents himself as the most knowledgeable banker and businessman in the entire world, despite having no evidence to support any of it.
Every nation in the world is going to do a reset. A reset. We're going to eliminate all debt. Number one. We're going to be a debt-free world. So every debt that is owed to another nation is set at zero. Nobody owes shit. No more debt. Reset the debt to zero. And every nation is to print $999 zillion. Every nation is to print $999 zillion. And wait for further instructions. And wait for my instructions.
Although he sincerely believes these delusions to be facts, he still somehow managed to use the very same claims to grift people out of their money, which is where it stops being just mental instability and turns into something far more dishonest. These actions trace all the way back to around 2010, when he allegedly scammed a person out of $390 by promising them some kind of financial return. Once the money was sent, he cut all contact with the person and even went as far as blocking their number.
Here's to all you YouTubers. Just so that you know, Donald Slidell is a freaking fake. He will not pay you. He uses everybody's information to collect and make himself richer. So if you ever have dealing with Slidell Financial, it's better to just say no. Thanks.
But above all of this deranged behavior, there is one aspect that makes Papachu infinitely more dangerous, and that is his undeniable predatory behavior. Over the years, even long before Tophia ever appeared online, Papachu maintained a Twitter account where he would rant about his delusions, while simultaneously pushing disturbing, predatory messages to his followers, specifically targeting underage girls. This is where his behavior crosses a line that can no longer be brushed off as just mental instability, and becomes something far more serious and threatening. He's been repeatedly banned for posting extremely disturbing content, such as telling parents to be with their children from a young age, viewing it as a way to teach kids about life, and even going as far as offering $10,000 to any girl who is under 18 years old to be with him for one night. But perhaps the most disturbing accusations against Papachu comes from Tophia herself, when she said verbatim that her dad had R-worded her.
Like, I wasn't being mean towards Mexicans. I always have to defend myself.
That's okay. I
And when
never
I
want to
do,
do anything with any of you. You're all sick.
someone literally told me I was messed up in the head because my dad R-worded me. And they victim shamed me several times. I did nothing but try to defend myself.
In contrast to the magnitude of this allegation, there is no particular piece of evidence suggesting it to be true or otherwise, and since Tophia is not a particularly reliable narrator, this claim might not be true. But either way, it is still so disturbing to watch, and given this disturbing story, the fact that Tophia is now yapping about how men are stalking her just because somebody offered her a ride, while at the same time insulting each and every person who accused Papachu of the same thing, is pretty much hypocritical. But ironically, around the same time this happened, she would also be exposed as a stalker herself, doing the very thing she's complaining about other men doing to her. Over the course of the years, Tophia has never had any serious friends whatsoever, and the reason is mostly because of her personality, as well as people not wanting to associate with her due to her social media infamy. But around the month of September of this year, she brought up this woman whom Tophia believes is her friend. This woman lived at the same shelter as Tophia. Although Tophia claimed this person was just a friend, from the way she described their interaction, it seems she may have had a romantic interest in her. Tophia took it even further when she reposted this video on TikTok, which says, POV, when your homegirl starts looking at you with those pretty eyes and smiles she got. Although Tophia was acting as though the two were extremely close, it was only a couple of days after she started sending these signals that she was interested in this person romantically. But unfortunately for Toph, this person didn't want to reciprocate the feeling and ended up cutting Tophia off, which visibly upset her. After this happened, Tophia started talking about this person in a negative way online, but the irony was that she was still obsessed with her, and ended up going to the new shelter this woman entered. Tophia was then removed by security because this person did not want any contact with her at all. And beyond Tophia's obsessive behavior, one of the other major reasons this woman reportedly became disgusted with her was what happened around Halloween. Despite still being homeless and in a terrible financial situation, Tophia was once again exposed, wasting what little money she was getting from gifts and other small ventures on completely useless things. This time she decided that she needed 3 different Halloween costumes. And for someone who is mentally stable enough to understand that spending money on costumes while living in a homeless shelter makes absolutely no sense, this was likely the final straw. That realization alone would be more than enough for anyone to distance themselves from Tophia permanently. So after everything we've covered, from the GoFundMes and casino trips to the Tylenol drama and revenge plots, where do you land on Tophiachu? Is she a ruthless scammer who keeps exploiting tragedy and sympathy, or a deeply unstable person who needs serious help more than she needs a platform? Tell us your opinion in the comment box.